Welcome, everyone, to Rutgers at the voice of college football. I'm here, as always, with my fantastic co-host, Gabriel Pickup. And on tonight's show, we're going to talk about Maryland. Can Rutgers get a victory this weekend at home against the Terrapins? Coming off of a rough loss against Illinois and a really, so far, disappointing season, Gabe. So what are your thoughts?
My thoughts, first off, are I'm sorry that I look like a potato. I'm on my laptop. I'll be back home next show. That's the first thing.
I think it's an improvement.
Oh, that you don't have to see as many pixels of me. Before we get into Maryland, because I have a feeling the mood of the show, even with Maryland being a very beatable opponent, won't necessarily be all that optimistic. First, I want to talk about what a performance Rutgers alumni Kyle Monangai had against, yes, the Cincinnati Bengals, but this was Monangai's first start, and he had 176 yards rushing on 26 carries. His long was 39, and he helped secure a 47-42 win against Cincinnati for the Bears. He was drafted in the 7th round, and Adam and I were saying we hope he makes the roster, and it didn't look like a guarantee that he would. And then he not only made the roster, but he guaranteed himself to be RB2. And then all of a sudden, DeAndre Swift goes down, and he's their guy. And when Swift comes back, who knows how that's going to be. So very happy for Monangai. Keep representing.
Absolutely. Congratulations to Kyle Monangai. What a fantastic job he did for Rutgers, and it's wonderful seeing him succeed in the NFL, and wish him the best as always. And I see Pitt Snipe Huskers here. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. And he's a Nebraska fan. Nebraska, tough loss against the USC Trojans, but Nebraska did show some grit and some promise in that game. And I'll tell you, that was a great venue. That stadium was rocking. The Cornhuskers still have a great crowd at home and a great atmosphere.
Yes.
So, when I think about this show, I would like to be optimistic. I don't want to be negative, but the season really has not gone in the way that we had hoped. And I think the reason it's so disappointing is not just the losses, but it's exposed, I think, deeper problems with our team and our players and our coaching and our development that makes me worry about, how we're going to be as a program moving forward. But before we get to that, let's talk about Maryland. Maryland's 1-4 in the Big Ten. 4-4 overall. They're 3-3 at home, 1-1 on the road, and right now they have a 4-game losing streak. I'm not sure if that's a good thing because they're obviously hungry for a win. Now, when I look at their record, 39-7 victory against Florida Atlantic to start the season, a 20-9 victory against Northern Illinois, 44-17 over Towson, 27-10 over Wisconsin. Then the losing streak starts, 24-20. They lost against Washington at home.
That's a good game, though.
Yeah, it was a very good game. And lost to Nebraska, 34-31. Lost a heartbreaker to UCLA, 20-17. And then got blown out against Indiana, 55-10. So, there's one common opponent here. Rutgers lost 38-19. Maryland lost 24-20. Rutgers was on the road. Maryland was at home. So,
yeah.
When I think about Maryland, I think about Malik Washington. He really is the anchor for that offense. Maryland does have some speed, and they do have a few playmakers. Not a very good running game, but they're anchored by Malik Washington, who's got 1,958 yards passing, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and a 55.4 QB rating. Now, the running backs haven't been terribly impressive. DeJuan Williams, 88 carries for 302 yards and a 3.4 average. And Nolan Ray, 54 carries, 201 yards for a 3.7 average. Their two top receivers, Shatik Knotts, 26 receptions for 421 yards and 5 touchdowns. Octavian Smith, 30 receptions for 394 yards and a 13.1 average. So coming into the Indiana game, Maryland had the nation's best turnover ratio until they turned it over 5 times against Indiana. But what we're seeing is, Maryland has an offense that can make plays, that can score, and a defense that's, not great, but, competent. So this is definitely a game that's tough to predict. So I'm going to turn it over to you. What are your thoughts about our prospects against Maryland?
Yeah, you kind of nailed it right in the hatchet there. My only question is, what are Malik Washington's rushing stats? Because our biggest problem all year, as I tweeted, as I said on Saturday, is the mobile quarterback. We cannot stop them, and we let them torch us because of their unpredictability to keep the ball. And when they do keep the ball, they run it deep. So what are Washington's rushing stats looking like?
Well, one thing I'll say, I don't have Washington. I don't have his rushing stats, but I do know he's a dual threat quarterback. And dual threat quarterbacks, we can go back as far as Parker Navarro, are going to give Rutgers trouble. And the question is, is this a game where Rutgers is going to show what Shiano would say, the kind of incremental improvement on both sides of the ball that are going to enable it, victory? I don't know. It's very tough to predict.
He's not had the best year rushing, 27 carries for 99 yards, 3 touchdowns. So it's pedestrian at best, but in college football, sacks are counted as negative rushing yards. So who knows however many sacks he's taken, that's a lot of yards off the board. And we all know that Eric O'Neill had a phenomenal game on Saturday, but throughout the year, we have not had a good pass rush. Let's hope that fueled something against Illinois. One of the only things we can take away from it is maybe we figured out how to rush the quarterback a little bit in that second half. And that would be the only way that we can stop Malik Washington, because Jason O has said, actually, in the comments section, shout out Jason O, he has mentioned that Malik Washington, being the true freshman that he is, he has potential to be one of the best Big Ten quarterbacks in a couple of years. And he's certainly not the worst at this point. And that offense has had some good wins and some really close losses outside of Indiana. With Rutgers, it's tough to say good losses outside of maybe Iowa. That might be the only quote unquote good loss we've had this year, even though I believe it set the tone. But with Maryland coming to Piscataway, actually, I believe, right? This is a home game. It's going to be tough to, even with the fans and everything, because we saw it against Oregon, it's going to be tough to hold Malik Washington to only a few yards rushing. He's going to find some gaps because our defense has given up a lot of rushing yards, not even to the running backs, but to the quarterbacks. And it's a tough balance. I think defense is going to be the name of the game this week, whereas last week it was the offense. I think that they have a bounce back week. That might have been Ethan's worst game as a Scarlet Knight, and maybe not statistically, but in terms of how he looked, the eye test. I think that this is going to be a lot better of a game offensively against the defense that's worse than Illinois, but Illinois' defense is still pretty bad. So, man, that should have been a game that we could have kept close. But this game, I do think that we'll win. And, I have the odds here. It's pretty much a pick'em game for bookmakers. DraftKings has us winning. FanDuel has Maryland winning. ESPN has us winning. BetMGM has Maryland winning. So it's very much a toss-up.
Yeah, and I think when you look at this game, one of the things I start out is, let's talk about Maryland's offense. Maryland really can't run the ball. So this is going to be a game where Malik Washington is going to be the one who beats them. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot. He is a dual threat quarterback, so he's going to give some issues to Rutgers defense that way. When we look at their schedule, they scored 27 against Wisconsin. They scored 20 against Washington. They scored 31 against Nebraska. They scored 17 against UCLA. So it's an offense that looks competent, but certainly an offense that can be stopped. Now, when you look at Rutgers, on the other hand, this is why it's kind of a pick'em game. I mean, Rutgers is 4-5 right now, 1-5 in the Big Ten, and they're 3-2 at home and 1-3 away. So, what does Rutgers need to do to win this game? It starts, like you said, with the defense. The issues that I've seen, though, is especially against Illinois, no pass rush. And although Eric O'Neill had a few good series, I thought that overall the defensive line has not been good. No pass rush whatsoever, and not very good at stopping the running game. And to make matters worse, the secondary looks lost at times. They just look like either they're not on the same page, they don't understand the scheme, they're out of position, and that goes to coaching and development as much as it goes to the players themselves. So when I look at this game, I then turn to the Rutgers offense. What I've seen out of Rutgers offense is at times, in the first half against Iowa, the first half against Minnesota, very impressive. But then I look at how they played against Oregon, how they played in the second half against Iowa, and how they played against Illinois. Very inconsistent. So
Yeah.
the way I look at this game is you're going to need three things are going to have to go right for Rutgers. They're going to have to, the defense is going to have to get some type of pass rush. If they don't, it's going to be a long day for that secondary. Number two, Athan's going to have a much better game because he just was off against Illinois. And number three, they're going to have some balance on offense and not be so damn predictable. Okay? And if they don't do those things, I'm giving the edge to Maryland at this point.
Yeah, it's fair to do so. I think that it's fair to critique the pass rush too, because I would say so far this year, yes, the secondary has looked lost at times, but they've also made some good plays. It's just the problem was third and fourth down last week. Altmaier was finding his guy or finding a rushing lane. And Altmaier isn't even known to be like one of the best mobile quarterbacks, but we made him look like we've made every other quarterback look. You think Mark Gronowski, Parker Navarro, obviously Damon Williams, Dante Moore. We've made them look like prime Michael Vick every week. The only exceptions being Purdue and Norfolk State. Daquan Finn had his inconsistencies against us, but we made him look great too in that first half. So to me, the problem is the secondary may be letting some guys get open, but I saw some promise out of Bo Masco, Cam Miller. I saw some promise out of Jacoby Henderson. But to me, the issue is the pass rush because every secondary is going to let guys get open if you give these quarterbacks in the Big 10 seconds, 12 seconds to make a play happen. Anything more than 5 seconds, you can make a play happen. I mean, outside of Athan, who else in the Big 10 isn't going to be able to run the ball? And that's with all due respect to Athan because he does run the ball and get something out of nothing, but he's not a mobile quarterback. And every other quarterback that we face is really damn mobile. And so the fact that we haven't figured this out yet, it's not an anomaly. Every week you're going to be facing a mobile quarterback because at this point in college football, if you're not a mobile quarterback, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jay Snow has a very interesting comment. If Athan struggles early, it'd be nice to see AJ Surace in some situations. I happen to agree with that because I really believe that Rutgers needs some fundamental changes because when we came into this season, the guys we got from the portal, it was a highly ranked portal class. And we thought with the increased speed, size on the defensive line, and with transfers like Jet Elod and Cam Miller, the defense would be improved. I've never seen a defense this bad. Maybe there are in years past, but this defense is bad and not improving. And the problems they're having are almost like not something you can fix week to week because they look lost at times in the secondary with receivers wide open. And then Luke Altmaier had all day to throw. And this has been a recurring pattern for that defense. Now, on offense, what I'm seeing is too predictable. I know when it's 4th and 2 or 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, I know they're going to drop Athan back and do that slant route. It's the ball's always going to KJ or it's always going to Ian. There's not any real diversity on offense, and there's not balance with the passing game to set up play action. So I think what's really disappointing to me is that this season isn't just that we're losing games, is that I think that there's some serious flaws in the program in terms of coaching and development that go way deeper than just this season. And it concerns me about the program's future going forward.
Yeah, you talked about the lack of depth with the receiving team. And meanwhile, all offseason, we were bragging about how this team got deep. But where has Colin Weber been in the offense? Where has Kenny Fletcher been in the offense? DT has not had the role we thought he would, but you can also argue because of Ian and KJ Duff that they have that he has sort of had the necessary step back in terms of a role. Ben Black has had his moments, but then outside of the wide receivers, I mean, Antoine Raymond had one game where he caught a few balls, and that's it. And like I said, the tight ends have been non-existent in the play calling. And there's some damn good receivers too. They just haven't had their moment to shine. They've been given basic bubble routes and asked to get a first down out of it. And you give it to guys that are slower than wide receivers, they're not going to be able to get those yards in a bubble route. And that's just simple football that we've known since we were 10 years old.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and also I was gonna say this comment right here. I feel like unless it's a blowout, I think it would be a little immature to put in AJ for Ethan and just say the season's over, throw in the freshman and see what he's got. I think it's immature because if you are Coach Shiano, if you are Kelly Zinn, and you see that you're still in bowl contention, even if the odds are against you, you're going to feel disrespected as a quarterback if you're benched when there's still a season to be played. And it's going to stop people from wanting to come play here if we're going to give up when mathematically we're not eliminated yet.
Okay, well, you make a fair point, but I haven't been that impressed with Ethan. I think that he's regressed. I was not impressed with him against Oregon, where he was 8 of 25. Against Illinois, he just was not accurate, and it reminded me of last year. And I think Rutgers' program needs a fundamental makeover, a fundamental overhaul, because it's not just that we're losing games. There are systemic, serious problems with coaching and development, and also with player evaluation, because the guys that we got from the portal have not performed well at all. And I think that for Rutgers to be competitive, it's not just about, oh, they lost a few games this year they could have won. They're not going to get any better going forward in the future unless there are major changes to the program. I just don't see a winning culture right now. Now, so what are we going to do against Maryland? I think it's going to be more of the same. I think if we win, it's probably going to be an ugly win. And, we'll still be bowl eligible, but we'll be bowl eligible with the Buckeyes and Columbus and Penn State coming into Shea Stadium, and I see a 5-7 season. Now, I do think Coach Shiano, part of the reason I think Coach Shiano is so stressed is because I think he realizes that they didn't do a great job of recruiting and coaching this year. And, I'm going to put it out there, unless there's some major changes, I don't think the future of the program it's going to be more of the same and not on the upward trajectory we want. So I would give Coach Shiano one more year. And if it doesn't work out, then I think Kelly Zinn's got to step up because she's from LSU. She's from a winning culture. Mm-hmm. And right now, what I'm seeing is a team that is fundamentally lacking in confidence, unable to adjust at all, and simply getting beat by teams that they should either beat or at least be more competitive with. And we're in the Big Ten. So Rutgers, if you want to be competitive in the Big Ten, this program needs a complete overhaul.
Well, I agree with the majority of your latter points, but I highly disagree about Ethan regressing. When you look at this year, he is passing 8% better than he ever has. He has only 200 less yards than he ever has with 3 games left. He has 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, which is the best ratio that he's ever had. He threw his longest pass by 7 yards. He has the best quarterback rating he's ever had. And as an offense, we've scored 29 points a game. The only area that he has gotten worse in is rushing. And that's because he's gotten sacked 7 more times already. And last year he had 250 yards rushing, 2.5 yards per carry. This year, negative 14 yards because of all those sacks, but the same amount of touchdowns. So when it's a designed run for a couple of yards, he'll get that. But Ethan, he did look bad last week. He looked bad against Oregon. He had no reason to look bad last week because of the defense that he was facing. But I can't buy into the whole regression thing. I can't buy into the giving up on him thing for a freshman just because, fans might believe the season is over when it's mathematically not true yet. If there's something to play for, you're damn right that we're going to have to play for it.
Well, that's fair, and I guess we'll agree to disagree, and you might be right. I just think that Ethan's good, but he's not great, and I think
it's like he might not pass the eye test at times. Sorry to cut you off. It's just statistically, he's had one of the best years in Rutgers history, and he's faced some really good defenses. Look how he torched Iowa, specifically in the first half. Look how he played against Minnesota. He had a game-tying, game-winning drive up his sleeve before the Zelinskis missed snap. And against Purdue, he was a wizard in that second half. And every single week, he's thrown for 200-something yards, 300, like almost 400, except for Oregon. And with Oregon, you hate to say it, but there's the excuse of Oregon having one of the best defenses in the nation. So the only game I'm going to dock him for this year is last week against Illinois, and you don't give up on a quarterback because of one really bad game.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm giving up on him, but I think my point is that there's a ceiling with him that is not going to, yield victories in games against good defenses. I mean, in the second half against Iowa, he was average. He was pretty good at Minnesota. Wasn't great in the first half against Purdue. Was not good against Illinois. So I'm seeing the same theme that I talked about like months ago on these shows, which is inconsistency. And like I said before, Rutgers needs a fundamental overhaul. This is not a matter of, we need a few more players from the portal or we need to recruit better at this position. They are bad at almost every position. And they also, the intangibles aren't there. They don't have the confidence. They don't seem to be playing as a team. And Schiano, as much as I love Coach Schiano, I don't think that he has compiled a staff that is even remotely capable of coaching in the Big Ten. And that's not him. I hate to say it.
Well, the only coach I think that has been compatible, not because of this year by any means, but years past, is Pat Flaherty. He's had a bad, not necessarily him, but his guys have had a bad year. Like I said, 28 sacks allowed. That's a career high for Athan by 7, and we still have 3 games left. That's impossibly out of character for this offensive line in an offense that has improved in every metric this year. So he's the only guy I would say is safe for next year. Schiano's almost definitely going to get another chance next year unless he personally says he doesn't want one. But my problems are almost on defense outside of the fact that we didn't have time to gel because of mostly new guys coming in. Big whoop. It's the new NIL age. There's going to be new guys coming in on every team, especially defense, where you're not getting paid big bucks and you see a little bit more change and you want to go there. It's that the transfers haven't had that much time, but also with Rob Smith, man. I know it's like a joke that Rob Smith put his head on the stick or whatever. Obviously, I wish him well, but in terms of the program, I don't think that he's a fit in it whatsoever. And if the news about Schiano wanting to fire Rob Smith and it getting denied is true, I hope Kelly Zinn has a good reason for denying it.
Yeah, I think her reason is that she does not want to give Schiano the kind of control over the program that he used to have because she doesn't like what she's seeing on the field. I mean, a lot of people talk about Rob Smith, but we also must have a defensive line coach. We must have a linebackers coach. We must have a secondaries coach. I mean, it's not all in the DC. The whole staff is to me is not capable. And the players, to me, quite frankly, I think that there's a talent disparity where they're not going to compete in the Big Ten because they're just not good enough. And as far as Athan goes, yeah, I mean, he's been good in some aspects of the game. He's made some amazing throws, but 6 points in the second half against Washington, not good against Illinois, 8 of 25 against Oregon. I just don't think that he's the quarterback that's going to lead Rutgers over the hump. Now, I wouldn't replace him, but I also think that we've got to look more broadly at the problems. The problems is not just Athan. I mean, and he may not even be the problem, but no. I think he's good, not great. But I think the problem is coaching. The problem is development. The problem is player evaluation and recruiting. That's why I'm saying this whole program needs an overhaul. And Kelly Zinn is a new AD. So she's not going to come in here and all of a sudden disrupt the program and start making immediate coaching changes. But I do think they can and should happen sooner rather than later because I don't have any patience anymore. I am so sick and tired of the season. The script is the same as always. We start out with 3 cupcakes and beat them. And then we lose some games we should have won and get blown out by teams that are near the top of the Big Ten. I'm tired of it. I think that we've seen all we need to see, and Rutgers needs fundamental changes across the board.
Yeah, that's fair. And about Athan, you say he's not going to be the guy to lead us. Obviously, he's not going to be the guy just because of the fact that he's a senior. But if he had this improvement from last year to this year, say from freshman to sophomore year, I would have said that he could be the guy and that we should keep him. But obviously, he's going to declare for the draft. Probably won't get drafted, but he'll be a UDFA guy in a practice squad, and I hope that he makes a team. But AJ Surris, he's looked good in garbage time, and if we don't get another quarterback in the portal and AJ Surris sticks around, I would hope that he's the starting quarterback next year and that we do give him a shot because of his youth.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I like Ethan. He seems like a great guy, great team player, and I wish him all the best. And I'm not, the problems with Rutgers this year are not to be placed on Ethan. But when I think of Rutgers competing in the Big Ten, you're talking about Ohio State, you're talking about Michigan, you're talking about USC, Oregon. Okay, these teams, we are never going to compete with these teams unless, number one, we have a defense. We need to focus solely, not solely, but significantly on getting a defensive line because O'Neal and Weaver have not panned out. Jet Elod has not panned out. Cam Miller's been okay. We need to be completely, looking at this program from what do we want to achieve? Do we want to be competitive in the Big Ten? Well, we're going to have to start by getting players and paying players that are going to be competitive. Right now, we're not.
Yeah, and the whole Shiano culture, players should just be loyal and accept less money for the team. It's a nice idea, but unfortunately that reality is far from over, and we're going to have to spend money to get players that can put up enough of a talent disparity gap to close. Wow, that was a weird way of saying that, but we should get players because we're paying them enough money, not just because they're buying into a system. Buying into a system is great, but in today's world, you need to get paid enough and buy into the system. And so that mindset is hopefully one that will change this offseason with our NIL being launched. And obviously we're still recruiting now because of high schoolers, but I'm talking about in the portal.
Right, that's true. One of the problems I have, though, is that, first of all, we don't make adjustments at all. Every game is a tale of two halves.
Yep.
The offense has stalled in the second half repeatedly. And, when I look at programs, for example, I look at Indiana. Indiana historically has been below average in the Big Ten. Now, with Cignetti and their recruiting, look at where they are now. I look at a team like Virginia. Virginia, typically not the best program in the world, but all of a sudden, look, they're a very competitive team this year. I look at Duke, and I see, progress. I mean, they beat Clemson 46-45. I never see Rutgers having that kind of progression. Yeah. And I'm almost 50 years old, and all I've seen in the last 25 years is bottom of the conference, except for, a few years during Coach Shiano's first stint, which he deserves credit for. But this program is not where it needs to be, and it's not going anywhere unless some major changes are made.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere in either aspect. It's not going anywhere in terms of improvement, but it's also not going anywhere as in it's here to stay. And until these problems get resolved, fans like us are going to be stuck in this mediocrity, and it's going to be sort of limbo because we're not bottom of the Big Ten. So there's not enough convincing for there to be an overhaul, but we're certainly not at the top and seeing improvement every year. You thought maybe we were seeing improvement every year at first because we went from 3 wins to 7 wins twice in a row. And you thought that maybe this year, even if we don't get 7 wins, we'll still get 6 or 5 at worst, and we'll look better and we'll play harder. And we have played harder, but we have not looked better. So maybe the talent disparity thing is an issue, which I have serious hopes that that's not the case because I like the guys on this team. They seem like they like each other too, and the issue is beyond the locker room thing, certainly.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I hate to be the one who criticizes all the time. I mean, I know Rutgers players, they're playing hard, they're working hard, and, I appreciate everything they try to do to make this a winning program. But at some point, you got to look at, who are the leaders in this program? Who is on that coaching staff? And they just have not gotten the job done this year. And I know Coach Shiano kind of took a much more significant role in the defense the last 2 weeks, but the defense hasn't looked any better. So, are they evaluating the players correctly? Are they hiring good assistant coaches? Are the players being developed properly? The answer is no on every front. I just think that sooner rather than later, I hate to say it, we need a new head coach and we need an entire new staff, and we need to really focus on getting the kind of players so that when we go to Columbus in 2 weeks, we're not sitting here saying, "Oh my God, how bad will this be?" But we're saying, "Wow, we have a shot to win."
Obviously, there's nothing we can do in the next 2 weeks to change that sort of a reality, unfortunately. So when it comes to Maryland, we need to beat them. That's a must-win game for Schiano. It's a must-win game for us. And how Illinois' coach talked about their culture after losing 2 weeks ago, and then coming against us and saying it's unacceptable. That's how we have to be against Maryland. That's how we should be against Ohio State, but unfortunately, we're going to be disappointed. So with that being said, after Ohio State, you move on and you make Penn State your Super Bowl this year. That's the only way that we can have a good year, is if we beat Maryland and we beat Penn State. If we beat Maryland, we're doing bare minimum. If we don't beat Maryland, it's a disaster and everything has to change. But so that's the thing, is are we going to have a disastrous year, a bare minimum year, or are we still going to find a way to be able to call it a somewhat positive year by the end of it?
Yeah, Gabe, that's a really great point. And I think that highlights that, look, as bad as things may seem right now, there is still a path by which we could say the season was somewhat, or at least slightly salvaged by the fact that we're going to a bowl game. And if we beat Maryland and then we beat Penn State, that's going to be something to be proud of, even though Penn State's, kind of a mess right now. It's still Penn State. And then if we go to a bowl game and win that bowl game, but the issue I'm having in my own mind is that it's always wishful thinking, and it never pans out, but I hope it does. Now, Pinch Snipe Husker talked about Rutgers facilities. How are they rankings-wise in the Big Ten? Middle, very middle to the – I wouldn't say bottom, but very mid. Not horrible, but certainly not elite. And Jason O says Schiano will be back for next year. I do think he will. And I really want to see Coach Schiano do well, because I really have a lot of respect for him, and I want to see us succeed. I do think he deserves another year, but he's going to have to show some improvement and at least get 7 to 8 wins if he's going to stay.
Here's my question with Schiano. He has the tenure to have another year, and when you look at years past, maybe he's earned it then. But what has he done this year to earn another year? I guess say offensively?
No, I don't think he's done anything to earn it this year, but I think his history and the capital that he's built up through his history at Rutgers has given him the credibility that, you don't just throw him out after a year like this. And I think that's the right choice. And we'll all be rooting for Coach Schiano next year.
Yeah, what it seems like is the fans don't all want Schiano back, but the staff and the players like him. And that's sort of a what's the word I'm looking for? Not a fundamentalist, but there's like a word. What's that? You know how there's like that obvious progressive party and Democratic party, but then there's also that other one. Whatever that other one is, that's the term that I think abides best for Schiano. He's sort of like a guy that the working class might not love, but the higher ups respect. And they've seen his dedication to the program off the field. And I have nothing but respect for Schiano off the field. I just don't think that he's on the field the guy. And the defense did look a little better when he took more in charge against Purdue, but that's also Purdue's offense being one of the worst in the Big Ten. And then against Illinois, they didn't give us 50, but 35 points is still not a great margin of points to put up. Or allow, rather, no matter who it is. It could be Ohio State and 35 points. You don't ever go home happy about 35 points.
Yeah, and, look, when we talk about the facilities, I think Jason really kind of hit the nail on the head. They do have, an amazing practice field, certainly. I think what they need, though, is an athletic building that, has the kind of facilities and resources that, teams like Ohio State, Michigan, have, or something reasonably close to that. But when I think about Coach Schiano, the question next year is going to be, and he said this all the time, you're judged by your wins and losses. As wonderful as he is as a person and the relationships he's built and the credibility that he's developed, it comes down to wins and losses. And what we're going to have to see next year is I would like to see at least a 7-win season, preferably 8 for him to stay. And I would like to see them perform on the field in which we say, okay, this program is different. The games are different. The losses are different. They're better losses. If it's more of the same, I think that then we're going to have to make a change.
I think next year, or at least at the end of season meeting, Zinn and President Tate have to give him a number for him to stay. They have to say, you need to win this amount of games if you want to stay here. That needs to be, you need to have an ultimatum at some point. Schiano, as much as he's done for us, he can't have unlimited security in his job because the coaching job is getting increasingly more fragile in college football, and it's always been fragile in professional sports. So moving forward, I think that there needs to be a number. Now, I would say you say as Zinn, you say as Tate, let's get 8 wins and you can stay here. Not just for the year after that, but long term. And then in the back of our heads, it would realistically be 7 wins. If he loses 5, then we say get 7 wins. So I think you need a number at one point or another, because the number's in your head. What's the point in keeping an elephant in the room? Why not let it all out there? Why not give him that number?
Yeah, well, let's look at that schedule next year. All right,
Yeah.
They're going to be playing at home against UMass, and I believe Mr. Harizmiak will return to Shea Stadium.
We'll count it together. 1-0
at Boston College.
2-0.
Not so sure.
That's what I'm saying, though.
But that's going to be one of those winnable games that we could win. And unlike this year, it's got to be one of those games that we do win instead of then Howard at home, which is a win.
3-0.
At Maryland, another, a winnable game.
I'm saying 3-1 just because look at what Malik Washington's done this year. People are going to want to play for him. They don't know AJ Suris yet, so 3-1.
All right. Well, again, we had Iowa, Minnesota, Washington this year, winnable games. We lost all 3. Then we go to So are we going to turn the table finally and beat Maryland in that 4th game? Maryland is going to be our Iowa next year.
Yes.
We got to get over the hump. Then we go at Northwestern.
I'm going to say 4-1, man. Let's do it. I know they've had a good year, but let's do it.
All right. Then we're going to go at Penn State.
4-2.
Indiana at home.
Don't even need to say anything there.
Michigan at home. Michigan State at home.
I'm saying we win that. Honestly.
Nebraska at home.
5-5.
USC at home.
There goes Schiano's job right there.
At Wisconsin. So
right,
this is the point I'm trying to make. The Big Ten is all right. Maybe you could argue the SEC is more competitive, but I think it's very close. Regardless, the Big Ten, I mean, we're playing Michigan, USC, Penn State. Okay. Now, if you're going to want to be competitive in the Big Ten, you got to have the dudes on the defense and on the offense that are going to, win those winnable games. We were ahead on Iowa in the 4th quarter. We were ahead on Minnesota in the 4th quarter, and we lost it. That's the thing that needs to change at Rutgers. We need to start consistently winning the winnable games instead of losing them. And the one that we did win that we could have lost against Purdue, I didn't feel like we won it. I feel like they gave it to us because the quarterback turned it over at the end.
You know what? Adding on to that point, and I 100% agree, Purdue, I think I said this on Saturday too, Purdue shouldn't have been a winnable game. That should have been a chalk it off game. And coming into the year, it was. So you look at every other game that's been quote unquote winnable. I would say Ohio is the only one that we've won, and we've won no in-conference winnable games. Maryland is the last winnable game that I see us having a legitimate shot at. Now, Penn State, you can say we have a legitimate shot, but we are on a 10-game losing streak against them, and they're going to be on a losing streak too with better talent, and they're going to see us and say, we can't lose to Rutgers. Rutgers is the bottom of the barrel at that point because our record will imply such a thing. I don't think we beat Penn State. I think Maryland is our last shot to win a winnable game.
Yeah, and I think, Gabe, I'll tell you something. When I envision it, if we beat Maryland, then Shea Stadium against Penn State is going to be rocking.
Yeah.
It is going to be the chance for Rutgers to turn this season into something positive on the way to a bowl game. And that would be the best impression to leave on Rutgers fans and for the players to say, you know what, we fought through adversity, and at the end of the day, after the Maryland victory, we took care of business against a traditional power. Now, I do want to get to the point, though, when we talk about going to Columbus, in Ohio State, I don't want to be writing it off like, oh, there's no chance. I want to sit here saying, you know what, if we play well, we could pull off the upset. And that's where we need to be, where we can say we're going to be competitive with any team in the Big Ten. And right now, that's not the case.
Well,
Jason, 100% right. Go ahead.
I don't have any tinfoil here, so just imagine this is a tinfoil hat, because if you think that Rutgers is beating Ohio State, then you are wearing a tinfoil hat, unfortunately.
Yeah, and Jason, when I talk about Columbus, I don't mean competitive this year. I mean looking at the future of the program. I want the program to be competitive enough where when we're going to Columbus, they have to take us seriously. And where we say, we have the players to pull an upset if we play a great game. Now, I do think losing to Iowa was a gut punch, but I think the biggest gut punch was Oregon because of the complete domination. It just reaffirmed all of the fears that Rutgers fans had about the program. And, look, Oregon's a great team. But, Oregon did lose 30-20 at home in Autzen Stadium against Indiana. They beat Penn State in 2 overtimes. They're a great team, but there's no reason we should be losing by 45 points. That, I think, was a really rough day for Rutgers.
Yeah, and Pitt-Snipe-Husker, I couldn't agree more, but I think that this message applies after next year because there's still the fact that we have a new AD and maybe we change the coordinators around, plus we have a new quarterback. If it's the same quarterback, same coordinators, then I 100% agree. And that's why I think that we need to give him a firm number in the offseason of games to win. And I think it should be 8, but I think realistically he should be allowed to win 7 games only after he loses his 4th game. That's what I believe that is Kelly Zinn and President William Tate should do if Schiano is to remain a head coach in the Big Ten. And if he isn't, then we have some good coaches out there. The dream head coach that Adam and I have been preaching for is James Franklin. Now, it sounds like he's going to be closing in on a deal with Virginia Tech very soon, so probably not him. With that being said, the rest of the available coaches that are at least not the ones that are in a program and you hope to lure them away, the actual available coaches. I don't think there's anyone better than Schiano out there besides Brian Kelly. And Brian Kelly, I don't want him on this football team, man. I don't want to root for someone who seems like such a miserable person in the college football scheme. So that's why I would give him another year, because James Franklin is probably out of the picture. And if you have Coach Schiano, who's not the guy who's in control anymore, but rather Tate and Zinn are in control, maybe he'll have a little bit of a better locker room environment and less authoritarianism, dare I say. So I'm hoping that it all works out. But man, I agree with you, Pitt-Snipe-Husker. Why wait? Because this is the era of college football where you run out of patience for head coaches. And I love Schiano. I love what he's done for this program, specifically the first time around, but the second time also, at least letting us be somewhat competitive in the Big Ten in recruiting. But you got to give him a number.
Yeah, and I think in response to what Pitt-Snipe-Husker said, the reason I don't think there'll be a coaching change now is because Kelly Zinn is so new as the athletic director and just came on board. And Schiano has built relationships with the program over many years and has so much credibility. So I think as a new athletic director, the last thing she's going to want to do is come in and do something so disruptive so quickly. So while what you're saying may be, ultimately ideal, I don't think it's going to happen. I do think Ed Orgeron, good old Eddie Orgeron, he coaches with passion, and you never know. He could be a good fit at Rutgers because he's kind of the blue-collar, gritty type of coach that I think would be a good fit with Rutgers. I do think, though, Orgeron is looking to, if he comes back to coaching, I could see him being an assistant for Lane Kiffin. If Lane Kiffin
Here's my question. And by the way, this is off topic, but all the Lane Kiffin talk for other positions, I think knock it off. I think he's perfect where he is. But that's another.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I think it's silly that that's even a rumor. Maybe we get proved wrong, but I mean, he's in the perfect spot. As far as Schiano goes, now with James Franklin, we saw fans saying, fire James Franklin, and then he gets fired. And all the fans are like, you made a wrong move. This sets this program back for 20 years. And then with Brian Kelly, you see fans saying, fire Brian Kelly, fire Brian Kelly. He gets fired. And all the fans are like, see ya, so long. So which reception do you think that Rutgers would give Coach Schiano if he were to be fired in the offseason?
I think if Schiano was fired, I think the fan base would look at Schiano as the best coach in Rutgers football history, and he would maintain a tremendous amount of respect. And I think, though, that they would welcome a new start. It's kind of like, a bittersweet parting. It's kind of like, we love the guy, but the relationship is over, and it's just not working anymore. Now, I don't think a new coach is going to have any pressure because there's really no place to set the program back. I mean, they're just not good right now. So
yeah, if there's a new coach, they get a lot of leeway.
Yeah, and the key is going to be, is the coach a program builder? Can the coach recruit? Can the coach recruit in New Jersey from Don Bosco, Bergen Catholic, places like that? I think Franklin fits the bill, but I don't see him taking the job. I do see maybe a Fran Brown from Syracuse, possibly. I think that Brian Kelly would not take the job. So I think the kind of coach we're looking for is an up-and-coming young coach with the kind of potential that those coaches have reached.
Yeah, I agree with Fran Brown. And it's tough. Another reason that James Franklin wouldn't come here, if not for financial reasons, is the fact that Penn State and Rutgers somewhat having a bitter rivalry in terms of recruiting, and the fact that Penn State went 10-0 against us under James Franklin, that would be, in his eyes, a major demotion. Even if we believe that he can get this program as far as Penn State did, in his eyes, that's not a promotion whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, that Penn State game on, I forget what date it is, the last game of the season, that is going to be so important, not just for the game itself, but for what it symbolizes. If we get blown out by Penn State, then the calls for a change are gonna be pretty serious. If we beat Penn State, then that's something to build on. That's the whole thing. We need to ask, is there something to build on? Right now, I don't see anything to build on from the coaching staff to the players.
Yeah, agreed. And Jason, this point it's true to where we are now. You look at Penn State, and they get all the top guys in Pennsylvania. There's even a saying for it: the best in PA stay in PA. Unfortunately, that was storied by lovely former Rutgers commit Tavion Branch, and it's on the money. It's in their brand. Ohio, they get the best guys to stay at Ohio State. Michigan often gets the guys, especially look at Cal. And Cal, you wouldn't expect it because they're a middle-tier program like us, but they do a great job at recruiting in California. So New Jersey, it's an untapped market because the best school in New Jersey and the only FBS school in New Jersey is Rutgers. Why can't we do the same in Rutgers?
I'll tell you what the problem is. Here's the problem with New Jersey recruiting. The problem is that when you get players that go to, say, St. Joe's in Montvale or Bergen Catholic in Oradell or Paramus Catholic even. Though the top players from those teams go to Notre Dame. They go to Ohio State. They go to Ole Miss even. Bergen Catholic just had 3 years ago had somebody go to Ole Miss. So there's great players in New Jersey, but for years the top programs have been recruiting there and getting those players. And when you look at the winning tradition of those programs and their facilities and how they place people in the NFL, it's difficult for Rutgers to compete with that. So Rutgers has to branch out, and they've done so, but they're going to have to become more regional, if not national, in their recruiting base because New Jersey players are going to go right at this point to other schools.
Yeah, no, I know at this point. I'm saying why can't that be something we build to, is being the automatic commitment from players from New Jersey. That's the goal that we should have. Is as much as it's nice to branch out and get 4 stars from Georgia or players from LIU or Florida, or Connecticut, whatever it may be. Why can't we be the Cal of California, the LSU of Louisiana? Like, maybe not that we're the total best in the Northeast. Obviously, you look at Penn State, and if you consider Ohio State Northeast, but why can't we be that for simply the state of New Jersey? It's a 2.5 hour drive. I mean, that's such a small territory, and yes, it's densely populated, but like we could even be that for New York, because you look at New York City, Rutgers is the football school for New York City because it's within 30 minutes away. And then you look at Buffalo and Syracuse, and they're 6 hours away. So that should be the goal. If you're looking at recruiting, that should be the goal, is making New Jersey be a home for Rutgers recruiting.
And my answer to your question is about how we're going to do that. We have to win. Yeah. That's what's going to make us competitive. We have to win, and we're not winning.
Nope. But you know what else? You know what we are doing is we're sending some good players into the NFL. If you look at Kyle Monangai, obviously, you look at the Melton twins. You look at what's his name? Sebastian Joseph Day. It took me a second there for the Rams, and that's just all today. Unfortunately, that kicker and out of what's his name, Mike something or Mick something. The one that cost Jude McEltenney or something like that. He cost us a little bit of some recruiting points there by being the laughing stock of the NFL for like a week. But my point is, obviously, the McCourty twins, the whole 2006 team, we have some players that have gone on to do good things in the NFL. So that is one element that if you come to Rutgers and you are good enough to be in the NFL, you can have a good career coming out of Piscataway.
You could. And that's certainly true. I mean, Kyle Monangai is a perfect example. And there's been other players, of course. I mean, Ray Rice is another example. Yeah. But, that doesn't mean that players in New Jersey or in this area are going to choose us over Ohio State, Notre Dame, Penn State, or whatever. We have to win more games. And I think that it comes down to, number one, from a player standpoint, what is Rutgers offering me that Penn State, Notre Dame, Ohio State aren't? Right now, the answer is nothing. Number two, am I going to be part of a program that's going to compete for a national championship or a playoff spot? Number three, is it's going to land me in the NFL? On all three counts, they're going to go to those better schools because they have a better track record. And that's what we're missing. We need a better track record.
Yeah, we need a better track record. We do have some sense of stability in the coaching staff, which I guess is one other positive of keeping Schiano around. And we do have some new optimism with the NIL launch. So there are positives. It's going to take a long time, and we're going to lose trust in this program before it happens, but it will happen. And so I'm saying it right now, while I can still rationally say it, that I trust this program in the next 5-10 years to become a powerhouse for New Jersey recruiting.
I hope so. And Jason O made a comment about players going to Nebraska. Yeah, Bergen Catholic had a running back about 5 years ago go to Nebraska.
Oh, yeah, that was Pitt Snipe.
Oh, yeah. Okay, was that Pitt Snipe? Okay. Yeah, so, other schools, top schools, recognize the talent in New Jersey. How are we going to get that talent? We got to win, and we got to develop that street credibility, as I call it, where they say Rutgers should be mentioned in the same sentence as the top schools. So, great discussion, Gabe. I guess the way that I would kind of conclude this show is to get back to Maryland and say what's going to happen on Saturday, what's the score prediction, and what needs to happen for Rutgers to be successful.
Well, what needs to happen is Malik Washington needs to not put up his season total rushing yards against us at 99, which is very possible. What needs to happen is Eric O'Neill needs to have another fantastic game, which he's capable of doing. And last week was really his first fantastic game. Unfortunately, it showed up empty in the box score. But he contributed to multiple sacks, multiple tackles for loss. He forced an interception by tipping the ball up. He needs to have a fantastic game. And against Maryland's offensive line, we can do that. Number two, Athan needs to have more time in the pocket to pass the ball, because oftentimes in the Big Ten, the first read isn't there. So he needs time to make a second or third read and not have to scramble for a 0.5 yard rush and then have us afraid that he has a concussion in the process. And the third thing is I mentioned the pass rush, but I also mentioned the fact that we can't let Washington be a mobile quarterback. And, it sounds repetitive, but that's because it's been the same formula all year, and that is the secondary needs to show up. And you mentioned a flurry of guys with 20 to 30 catches, 200 to 300 yards receiving, and 2 to 5 touchdowns. We need to have their passing game be something that isn't a guarantee on third and fourth down, because third and fourth down was automatic last week for Illinois. I mean, we were doing great the first 2 downs of every drive, but unfortunately, once it got to third and fourth down, they were automatic, and we knew that they were going to convert every single time. So that's my 3 things.
Yeah. Very, very, good points. Do you have a score prediction?
Oh, right. I did the politician thing where I blabbered and didn't give my answer.
Speaking of politicians, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow is election day in New Jersey and New York. I encourage you to go out and vote, and whatever happens, happens.
Just vote. That's all we can ask for. That's what's great about democracy. Now, in terms of scoring the game, it's funny. The over-under for total in this game is it's 58.5, and I'm going to go right on the money and call it 58 points even. And I think that we should pull this off, man. I know it's crazy to say Rutgers will win in any way at this point in the year, but you know what? For one more loony prediction, because I'm not going to be predicting them to beat Ohio State or Penn State, spoiler alert, I'm saying we win 31-27, giving us an even 58 points total on the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm getting ahead. This is the last time I can say that Rutgers wins, so I'm going to do so.
Yeah, so I'm going to, when I look at this game, I don't really have 3 things that Rutgers needs to improve on. We know the defensive line has to get pressure, and Ethan, I agree with everything you said, but the one thing that I'm focused on against Maryland, the defense has to control the edge. Mm-hmm. They must control the edge and contain. They have not been able to keep containment all year. And if you let Malik Washington get outside, you're going to have problems. I do think that this Saturday, you will see improvement. I don't think it's going to be the type of performance that's necessarily entirely satisfactory to Rutgers fans, but I think that Rutgers is going to pull out the victory 33-26.
Joining the optimistic side for the last possible time all year. Hey, do you think there's a world where we beat Maryland convincingly, we play Ohio State well, and against Penn State, you give a prediction that Rutgers beats Penn State?
The scenario I see is that we could beat Maryland, that we will get blown out against Ohio State, and that Penn State is going to be closer than people think, but that the mistakes that have plagued us all year will result in a 10-point loss. I hope I'll change my mind before the game, but that's how I see it right now.
And it's funny that this is the direction that we're going with that, because that was always your game that you thought between Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State would be the one that was most convincing, or one that was most likely for us to win. But you didn't say that because Penn State was bad and we're bad, but in the ballpark. You said that because you thought we would be great and Penn State would be one of the best teams in college football, but that we would have a shot systematically. And it's just polar opposite.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because things have changed since then, but they've not changed in a way that fundamentally alters how I view it, because although we're not nearly as good as I thought, neither is Penn State, and they've lost Drew Aller. But I do think with Katron Allen and a still very formidable defense at Penn State, remember they were down just 17-14 against Ohio State, I think that it's closer, but Rutgers ultimately falls by 10.
Yeah, I would say anywhere in the 10 to 14 point range is you can walk away with your head not held high, but held looking forward instead of downwards. I think, unfortunately, I see that one being a blowout more likely than us winning. But if we play well against Maryland, man, and we keep the Ohio State game to, I'll say, within 21 points, then I'll go into that Penn State game with an upside down hat on and some tinfoil on top of it and say anything is possible. I'm not giving an official prediction that we'll win, though, and nothing will change that, unfortunately.
Well, I will say this to the fans of Rutgers. If we beat Maryland, the Penn State game is going to be the biggest game of the year, not just for this season, but for the trajectory of the program going forward. And Rutgers fans, you need to fill that stadium for Penn State. You absolutely need to sell it out and really, really be at your best, because if we can put everything together and beat Penn State, then there's a reason to smile instead of a reason to frown. And right now we're frowning, but we're got a small little piece of hope that hopefully starts with Maryland.
Yep, can't wait. The forced rivalry game, the rivalry game that was declared a rivalry, but none of us actually feel it like it is one.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, great insights tonight, Gabe, and I want to thank everybody for coming to the show, offering your great comments. If you like the show, please hit that like and subscribe button. We're going to be here right after the game on Saturday, hopefully in better spirits than we were after the Illinois game, and we're going to hopefully assess the game. We're going to assess the game, and hopefully we're going to be looking forward to a possible path to a bowl against Penn State. So thanks so much for being here, and as always, despite all the ups and downs, go Scarlet Knights.
Go Scarlet Knights.